it's Pyram King, and I'm super excited to bring to you another guide to Curse of Strahd. This one is the epic final face-off against Baba Lysaga in the ruined swamps of Berez. We've been really expanding and fleshing out Berez. We've got the Berez Hex Crawl. We've got the Stone Circle, the Fane, Water Fane on the Luna River location. We just finished the Bullywog Village, a whole new location. A lot of cool stuff going on there. The ruined manor and the haunted garden of the old Burgermeister, Laszlo Ulrich. The ruined church with the Maria's Monument and the crypt with all the vampire zombies. I mean, this has been a really fleshed out, great location, and it all culminates here in this epic battle with Baba Lysaga at the end, who's a pivotal character in the Legends of Barovia following that Fae Quest storyline. And before we jump into this guy, which I'm really excited to bring it to you, is a huge special shout out to you. All of you have made this possible. Yes, you, the supporters, you're supporting me making these detailed timestamp video guides, the PDF guides, the voice acting, the art, and these epic Foundry adventure modules. I mean, I think we're closing in on 40 adventure modules at this point. I've been doing this for over a year. It's been amazing, and it doesn't happen without your support. Seriously, it's your support making this happen. And if you support me on this epic journey at the Foundry Adventure level, your names are actual credits right here in the Foundry Adventure module. Look at all of these amazing people helping me on this journey. So huge shout out, big thanks to all of you. I really appreciate you putting your confidence in me to bring you all of this content. I love doing it. So big thank you to you. Now, if you're interested in supporting me, whether it's at the PDF level, and by the way, if you support me at the PDF level, your names are in the PDF guides, or at the Foundry level, you can. There's a link in the description down below. Now, two other people that I need to thank, because none of this would happen without them. First and foremost, you already know who that is my partner in this epic journey, DM Andy's making these beautiful, gorgeous battle maps. We're going to be looking at 3 of them here, and he's gracious enough to allow us to include WebP versions in our Foundry modules and also our guides. However, if you want them in 4K or super high resolution 8K, grid, non-grid, night, day, weather effects, I mean, every one of these maps, he makes 4 or 5 varieties of them. They're all available over on his Patreon page. He has all these amazing Curse of Strahd maps. Go check them out. There's a link to his Patreon link down below. So huge shout out and thank you to you, DM Andy. And of course, none of this would be happening on Foundry if it wasn't for Blair and his Scene Packer module. Blair is a developer for modules for Foundry, the Scene Packer module, which he's very well known for. He's also providing tech support to our members on our Discord server. So huge shout out to Blair. If you're interested in making your own amazing adventure for Foundry, head over to Blair's Patreon page, look at the different support levels. He's awesome. Check him out. And if you're on Discord, give him a big thank you, because none of this would happen without you. And he's in Australia and I'm in Portugal, so I'm reaching out to him at odd hours to help me out. He just helped me out the other day. So big shout out to Blair. Big thank you. So with all of the thanks out of the way, let's jump in to this guide. I'm really excited to bring it to you. Now, you know, when I do these guides, I like to talk a little bit about the context of the location and the NPCs and some lore. And while you might not use all of it as a dungeon master, I feel it's vitally important that the more you know and the more comfortable you are with location, it is easier for you to improv. Because as we know as dungeon masters, our players will do what we least expect at the most inopportune time. And if we have a solid understanding of the location and the NPCs that they're engaging with, it makes our life so much easier to improv and respond on the fly. And keep that verisimilitude and context flowing, not breaking the context of the story and the world in which your characters are participating in. So we know quite a bit about Baba Lysaga already from the Fae Quest, the epic story about the Fae. We're going to cover just a little bit about that, but this guide is really about combat tactics and her today as Baba Lysaga. So we're going to be talking about that. And we've got 2 different battle maps in which you could engage one or the other or both with Baba Lysaga. And we're going to be covering both of those as well. So first, let's talk about Baba Lysaga and her combat tactics, which I think are important to focus on here. Now we know Baba Lysaga is the Swamp Fae. She was once the lovely Water Fae, but Strahd cursed her. After she escaped Ravenloft, he cursed her as the Swamp Fae, so the only thing that would worship her would be creatures of the swamp. Now, she felt abandoned by her Fae sisters, who also went into hiding. The Fae gems, powerful Fae gems are missing, so she doesn't have that powerful Fae gem magic anymore. When she returned after escaping from Ravenloft, she found the village of Berez destroyed, the river flooded, creating swamps there. I mean, the place just turned into this nasty hellhole. Now, being alone, feeling abandoned, feeling forsaken by everyone. Now, you have to remember, if we look back into history, the Fae were here first. They were like Mother Nature, and the people of Barovia worshipped them in kind of a druid paganism. And it wasn't until the kings came that brought the Moaning Lord religion, where the people started living in the villages and praying to the Moaning Lord and kind of forsaken the Fae. So when things went south, when Strahd came, and none of the villagers came to ally with the Fae against Strahd, she feels kind of, Barovians, you kind of, you said screw me and worshipped your Moaning Lord, and how that work out for you. So she has some, there's some animosity towards the Barovians. So without her power, her Fae power, and being forsaken, without her Fae sisters, she ventured to the Amber Temple. Now we know from the history, the Amber Temple was created thousands of years ago to imprison the dark vestiges, and she knows that they're there. And so she ventured there because it was the only source of power that she knew where she could possibly defeat Strahd. Now, she knew by making pacts with these dark vestiges that it would slowly further corrupt her. So she only made 3 pacts. I mean, every time you make a pact, and if you follow the Amber Temple Guide, every time you make a pact, you're physically and mentally becoming more corrupt, and it also comes with boons and banes. So she's made three pacts with 3 of the dark vestiges with Fareki. So she has the dark gift of the contagion spell that's once per day, needs to long rest. She also has the power of gaining 25 strength for 1 hour. That comes from Tar Hawk, and she made a pact with Yogg, who gives her the dark gift of temporary plus 30 temporary hit points. Each one of those are on a daily recharge. They only charge once a day. However, every time she made one of those packs, she got a boon and a bane. She didn't know what they were until they manifested. So her 3 boons are: she has advantage on Constitution saves, she has advantage on Strength saves, and she's immune to disease. However, she has these 3 banes. She has disadvantage on her Dexterity saves, disadvantage on her Wisdom saves, and disadvantage on her Persuasion and Charisma checks. So, the dark powers, they're going to make you ugly, they're going to twist you, they're going to make you even darker, you're going to get boon and banes. You do get a dark gift, but you got to ask yourself, is it worth it? And she realized that enough is enough, but that was centuries ago. And so she came back, after going to the Amber Temple, she came back to the swamp, start practicing her dark magic. And she created 2 particularly foul creatures. Now, she did create a lot of nasty creatures, and when you visit some of those, you learn about some of those through the Berez Hexcrawl. But 2 particular creatures that she continues to create. One are the scarecrows. And the scarecrows, part of the concoction from the scarecrows to make those scarecrows is she needs either crow or raven feathers and goat's blood. So she has to use this ritual of goat's blood with crow or raven feathers. So she needs to capture those crows or ravens to create these scarecrows that roam around throughout the ruins of Berez. In addition, she created the Bullywogs. We learned all about those. If you haven't watched that guide, you should. The Bullywog Village. She created the Bullywogs with the purpose of breeding an army, but also a people to worship her. Remember, being cursed as a Swamp Fae, the only thing that's going to ever worship her now under this curse is creatures from the swamp. And probably out of loneliness or missing, because she was once adorned and loved by the people of Berez, who would go and leave tributes at the Fane Circle. Well, they're all gone, so in turn, the Bullywog kind of serve as the people who worship her, but they're also her army. Now, let's talk about role-playing Baba Lysaga. Remember, she has been a loner. She is a recluse. And part of that, I imagine, was she was once this beautiful fae. I mean, the 3 faes were these beautiful spirits, right? Celestial, beautiful spirits. Now she's this twisted, ugly creature. I mean, check her out. I mean, ugh. right? I mean, can you imagine, becoming, turning into that? Yuck. So she's probably living more in isolation, becoming a recluse, because maybe she's conscious of she's made these dark pacts and she's physically changing into this nasty creature living in the swamp. She has no empathy or no fear. If she does communicate or socialize at all in a social encounter with the players, she won't tell them who she is. She'll just tell the players, you need to leave Berez immediately. Now, in secret, Baba Lysaga wants to know everything. She knows knowledge is power. She wants to know who the players are, what they're doing, do they have any powers, any magic or anything. She wants information and knowledge, but under no circumstances will she ever ally with anybody. It doesn't matter. She doesn't trust anybody. That's the problem. She has felt abandoned by everyone, so she trusts no one. There's no way that they're going to convince her, well, we are enemies of Strahd's too. She doesn't care. She operates alone in her vengeful hatred towards Strahd. Anything. The only interest she has in the players is their knowledge, power, weapons, magic, what they know, if she feels they can aid them. Otherwise, she wants them out of the swamp. Now, what she's going to do at this point is she's going to, if this is a social encounter, she's going to cast an obscured Geas spell. Now, she'll attempt to use Geas on a player, one player, and this will be totally unaware to the players. She will command them, if it works, to leave the ruins of the Swamp of Berez in peace and never return. Now, this is a verbal spell, and because it's a verbal spell, she's going to obscure it in speaking with the players. Now, if a player character has a passive perception or passive insight of 18 or higher, they will notice that she is obscuring a spell in her speech as she's talking to the players. I mean, she's able to mask this spell in her speech, unless the players can notice that. Now, you're going to just ask the players as you're speaking to the players, that player, you need to roll a wisdom save. And the players are going to, like, what for? And it's like, you just need to roll one. Unless the players have noticed that she's doing this, right? This is a really kind of sneaky, cool thing to do. And the Geas spell is excellent for it because it's only a verbal component. Now, if the players do take a hostile action to her, she's going to try to get to that Misty Step and get to that skull immediately. And we're going to talk about the importance of the Argynvost skull. The Argynvost skull is here. It's replacing the giant skull that is in Rules as Written. So Argynvost skull is here. She's using that as a method. If you've read the story or followed the lore, she stole it. When she escaped from Ravenloft, she stole Argynvost skull, used her magic, what little magic she had left, to use it to levitate the skull and fly back to the swamps of Berez. So she stole Strahd's most valued, trophy, was the skull of Argynvost, his rival who he killed. So let's talk about the combat tactics, because I think they're important to cover here. Now, if you have your own ideas or suggestions or disagree with these, I'd love to hear them in the comments down below. So let's go ahead and cover these here. Now, I see Baba Lysaga is cunning, intelligent, very comfortable in her element. She will avoid hand-to-hand combat only as a last resort. She's a range caster. She wants to get out of a hand-to-hand combat. She loves controlling the battlefield through multiple targets, multiple threats, creating confusion on the battlefield so she can operate as a range attacker. So if she's on the ground, not in the skull, right, she's going to try to get to that skull. Now, by the way, the stat block chains that we talked about were those dark gifts, the 3 dark gifts she has. Each one of those are action recharge once a day. And the boons and banes, you got to remember the boons and banes, advantages and disadvantages on some of the checks and saves that she has. She does have one additional spell, the sending spell, and we'll talk about why that's important. So on the initial engagement, if she's on the ground, she's going to use spells to control and hinder her enemy to give her and buy her time to retreat to the skull so she can take to the air and do her range attacks from there. So what kind of spells you can use to hinder your enemy? Well, summon swarms of insects, that dark gift of contagion spell, sleep, misty step. If she can make it to that skull with that misty step, she's going to do that. Black tentacles, cloud kill, anything you can do, some crowd control, one spell that can do a lot to a lot of people, that can slow them down, hinder them, cause confusion on the battlefield to buy her time to get to the skull. Now, when she gets to the skull, there's a couple of things. She's going to think about buffing herself. If she has the opportunity to buff herself up to 25 strength, or get that plus 30 hit points, those are both actions. She may do that depending on the timing and the opportunity. You got to always think about the opportunities. If she feels she's at risk at that point, she's going to wait until she gets in the skull, and we're going to talk about the advantage of being in the skull, because a lot of people forget about that advantage of being in the skull. It's not just range, but she has an AC advantage in that skull as well. She might keep, and depending on how your combat's going, she might keep those temporary hit points in her back pocket and use them if she needs them. Now, as soon as she gets to the air in the skull, she's going to be doing this kind of strafe attack. She's going to come into range, fire off her spells, save enough movement to back out of range, right? She does not want to get hit. Now, here's something a lot of people forget about, and it's in rules as written, is the skull provides 3/4 cover. That means she's going to get a +5 to her AC and a +5 to her dexterity saves, which is important for those dexterity saves because she rolls disadvantage. That's one of her boons. One of her banes is she rolls a disadvantage on dex saves. So getting that +5 to dex saves is going to help her out because she's rolling disadvantage, and she gets a +5 to AC if she's in that skull. Now, once she gets to the skull, she's going to fire off her big guns. She loves using the big spells right away. She wants to weaken those enemies, and she's hoping. She doesn't want to kill them. She's hoping they just retreat. If she kills 2 or 3, she doesn't care. So Finger of Death, that's going to go right at a big target. Power Word Stun, great for a range spellcaster. Blight, Fireball. She's only going to use that. She's going to retain that Fireball unless the players are bunching up. If they're bunching up, she's going to hammer them with one of those Fireballs, Lightning Bolts. Now, once she runs out of those deep spell slots, right, she's going to revert down to her lower level range spell slots. She has Acid Splash and Firebolt. Those are cantrips. Witch Bolt, Magic Missiles are lower level spells that she can use. But she's going to try to blast them heavy with those big spells. Now, why does she have the Sending Spell? She's going to keep a level 3 spell slot open, not used, for that Sending Spell, because when she has the opportunity, she's going to use that to reach out to the Bullywog Witch to call for aid. And in 2 rounds on initiative count 20, the Bullywog Patrol will arrive and engage the party. Now, the Bullywog Patrol includes a Croaker, 1 Croaker, 4 regulars, and 2 Bullywog Scouts. And if you watch the Bullywog guide, you know those Scouts, while they don't have a lot of AC, I think they're like 13 AC, 20 hit points, they get 2 range attacks with their blowgun, and they have a superior swamp stealth. That means if they fire their blowgun and they hit you with one of their poison darts, if your passive perception isn't 15 or higher, or you fail your perception check to find out where that dart has come from, they remain camouflaged, stealth. You're not going to be able to hit them. So that's their huge advantage. Now, the important thing, and I want to stop here for a second, and this is very important because I see this often happen, and especially in D&D, is not all combat encounters is a fight to the death. The Bullywog do not want to kill the players. They want to incapacitate the players, take them back as their prisoners to the Bullywog village to turn them, to sacrifice and turn them into more Bullywogs. So this is a way that you can introduce the Bullywog village to the players. If the players go down and get captured, the Bullywog take them back to the village. If Baba Lysaga reigns supreme, she's not just going to pile drive the players and kill them. She has a vested interest in her Bullywog. She's going to turn them over just like she's going to turn over somebody else you're going to find out to the Bullywog village to sacrifice to create more Bullywogs. So the Bullywog Patrol there, I actually have that. I really like him. I mean, he's a low level creature, but man, I just think he's really cool as that Bullywog Scout. I mean, he's like a sniper with this blowgun. I mean, he's got that superior swamp camouflage. He can fire from stealth without being revealed. He's got the vicious blowgun with the 3 different poison darts. One is the poison damage, the sleep, or the euphoric, which is the charm. I mean, they're like super snipers, right? Not a lot of hit points, not a lot of armor class. They don't need it. They got a high dexterity for a Bullywog. They're 16. They got expertise and stealth +7. I mean, these guys are like the super ninja stealth snipers in the swamp. So they're awesome. So 2 of those will show up, 4 regulars, 1 croaker. That's really going to create confusion on the battlefield. In addition, if the hut is not taken out yet, she could call the hut into play. Again, if she does call the hut into play by using her amulet, we'll talk about the amulet, master amulet, all of that, how that works. That will arrive too in 2 rounds and an initiative count 20. So you could have some waves coming in, to help create confusion on the battlefield. Now, one of the things that we need to think about with her is Baba Lysaga is not shy about escaping. If she looks like she's going to lose, she's down to 10 hit points. She's run out of spell slots. She's been grounded out of her skull. She's having to resort to hand-to-hand combat. She looks like she's going to die. Her allies are starting to fall. She has no hesitation about escaping and using any opportunity she can to escape. And she will venture off deep into the swamp to lick her wounds, to heal, to assess the situation, to recuperate. And it will be hard, if not nearly impossible, for the players to track her down. This is her domain. She can just disappear off into the swamp fairly easier. Now, if she does do that, you can decide later on if you want to bring her back for another combat encounter at another location in Brez. That's really up to you. Now, if you do kill Baba Lysaga, her body will fall into the swamp. It will immediately begin to rot and dissolve. It's kind of this putrid, nasty, you can see this kind of steam and acid stuff just turning into swamp, meshy guck and rot. And then you see this beautiful spirit of the water fae just ascend up into the mist and disappear at that point. Now, what's important to note here is whether you kill her, Baba Lysaga, and the spirit is freed, and all the spirits get, and souls are trapped in Barovia anyway, or she escapes, it will have no effect on doing the ritual to consecrate the feigned circle and to bring back the water fae. So if you kill her and you do the ritual to bring her back at the stone circle on the Lunar River, she will materialize as the water fae. If you don't kill her or she escapes, when you first do the ritual, she will materialize as Baba Lysaga, and the players may engage with her, but if the players wait, she will slowly start to begin to look beautiful again. All the physical attributes of being Baba Lysaga will morph back into the water fae. She will go through this transition back into the water fae as the ritual is dissolving all the negative darkness from her and restoring her to her natural state. So those are the 2 different outcomes, but in either case, it is not going to impact the ritual to bring back the water fae. So this gives you kind of the background, some of my ideas in how she would engage in combat. I hope you find this part of it helpful. So let's go to our 2 locations and talk about it. Now, we have 2 locations. We have the goat pen, and then we have the swamp where her hut is. And here is my feeling on this. We've really expanded Brez, and you can run Brez a couple of different ways. You can run Brez completely random using the hex crawl generator. You can run Brez more as a story methodology, similar to Rules as Written, where they get to the ruins, and then it goes through a realm of discovery where they can see the church, or they can see the manor, they can decide where to go in there as they're going through the ruins. And find the goat pen. Those are the 2 kind of ways where they can, through discovery or through the randomness and discovery of the hex crawl. There's no right or wrong way to do it. When do you want to introduce Baba Lysaga? That's really up to you. If you want to move it quickly, you can bring her in at any time. They just happen to see the hut there, or maybe they find the goat pen at this point, and this can call Baba Lysaga. There's 2 ways to bring Baba Lysaga into play. One is in the goat pen, one is if you see her hut. And those 2 ways you can run into Baba Lysaga. How you bring those 2 locations, that's really up to you. When we do the swamp where her hut is, I'll talk about some ideas there. So if you get to the goat pen, here we are at this lovely goat pen. Beautiful map, by the way, by DM Andy. Now, I want to point out a couple things here. The goat pen, we've got our text up here. You see this clearing. There's this wooden kind of crude-looking circular fence. There's some goats in there, and there's skulls. If we look in closely, you can see these skulls all along the edge of the goat pen. Look at all those nasty-looking skulls there, right? Now, the other thing that you notice here is you see this twinkling light, and there's some fairies. You can see there's a couple fairies. These are pixies. And if you've been looking at any other guides, you'll realize that there's some pixies in the swamp. Now, the versions of pixies in Legends of Barovia, they are neutral. They don't attack players. They live in the swamp and dark places, and they're this kind of neutral creature. If the players begin to attack them, they'll just disappear. But the players can talk to them. And if they talk to these pixies, look at these lovely little pixies here. They're all lit up. They look really pretty. If you talk to lovely little pixies, they have something to tell you. And I got a little guest dialogue here, which I will play. Hold on, and then we'll zoom in. And there's a text over here too. So let me get that ready so you can see so you can hear and see. So here we go.
Baba Lysaga does nasty thing to those poor goats. She used them for her dark magic. The goats are always crying to be set free. Could you please help the poor goat? Be careful. The skulls do not take kindly to those who wish to free the goats.
That was a guest NPC here from Portugal who did the voice of the little pixies. So Baba Lysaga does nasty things to the poor goats. As I mentioned before, she's using the goat blood as part of the ritual along with the crow or raven feathers to create the scarecrows, right? The little pixies say, hey, the goats are always crying. Can you help them? Can you help those poor goats and set them free? And the little pixies also say, those skulls do not take kindly to those who wish to free the goats. So they're going to give you, they'll tell you, like, free the goats because they're always crying, the poor little goats. But the skulls don't take too kindly. Now, if we get to the gate, we get to the fence with the goats. If the players they jump over the fence, the skulls don't do anything. The skulls will only react if you try to lift a goat out of the pen, or if you just try to break down the fence. If you break down the fence, part of the fence, or you try to lift the goat out, the skulls will start moaning. As soon as they do that, you're going to have all the players roll initiative, and you're going to put the skulls, all the moaning skulls, into the initiative count. Doesn't matter. Roll initiative, just put the skulls in there. Now, the skulls don't do combat, but the reason that you're going to be putting them in there is I created a random roll table on what comes and when it comes based on the skulls moaning. So the skulls are an alarm system. When the skulls moan on their turn, they're sending out this noise, this moaning. I'll show it to you. It's pretty cool. We've got a little lighting effect in there. If Baba Lysaga or the scarecrows hear it, they will come. Okay, so that's how this works. So you're going to roll initiative, right? Because the players have either broken down part of the fence or they're trying to get a goat out, right? And this is what's going to happen. You're going to click this button over here. It says Moaning Skulls. I got a little lighting effect in here too. Let's check it out. As soon as that happens, on their turn, you're going to play that sound, and on their turn, you're going to use the Moaning Skulls rule table. So let me reset this. Now, important about this rule table in Foundry, I also have this rule table listed out in the PDF. In Foundry, I have it draw without replacement turned off. So that means you're going to roll on this every single time it's the skull's turn. You're going to do this. When it comes to the skull's turn in the order, the players are in there trying to get the goats out of whatever. Everybody gets a turn, normal combat encounter. There's no combat happening yet, but when it gets to the skull's turn, you're just going to go. And then you're going to roll on this table. And it's going to tell you what appears. Now you notice it locks it out. Once it's rolled that particular number, in this case it rolled a 4, it means it brought in 4 of your scarecrows. So you're going to go over here. I got them sitting out all over here. You just take 4 scarecrows. Let's grab 4 of them. There's 4 there. You're going to fire them up and you're going to bring them into play. Boom. And you can put them all anywhere on the map. You're going to add these to your combat encounter. So the scarecrows show up. Then when it gets to the skull's turn again, you're going to do the moan. You're going to roll on the table. Baba Lysaga shows up. You're going to keep on rolling on this table until everything is blocked out. So I only have 3 more options. Nothing happens that turn. I got 2 more options. It's going to be a scarecrow and another scarecrow. right? And so once it's filled up, you're no longer going to roll on this anymore. The skulls will stop moaning because enough things have come at this point. So you've got the scarecrows here. These are just the scarecrows, rules as written. Here they are. I got these little kind of crazy scarecrows with some lighting effects. And Lysaga shows up. Now let's talk about Lysaga. I got it right here. And my suggestion is this. You can do it any way you want to. Bring Lysaga into play on the edge of the map. And on the edge of the map, also place her skull and turn that on. Now the skull here for Foundry is a vehicle. I have it set up as a vehicle in here so you can put her in the vehicle. But the skull has landed and she's getting out on foot. Why do you want to do this? You want to have the ability to have an encounter with her, possibly a social encounter, possibly doing that Geas spell, she's investigating what's going on. She's landed the skull a little far away. She's gotten out. What's going on over here? It also gives her an opportunity to try to get back to the skull, and then the players get to see the skull and figure out what that skull is. Like, oh shit, that skull is a dragon skull, and now it's flying. She's flying in the dragon skull and casting range attacks at her. So it gives the player a little bit of an opportunity and kind of a reveal of what she can do in the skull. Instead of her just flying in, just flying over and just blasting fireballs at the player, it allows for an engagement. She's wondering what's going on, right? Because nobody's really going in the swamp, so she's curious. Why are the skulls howling? Why are they moaning? She's coming to investigate at that point. So that's how you can run it. She could fly in on her skull. In addition, I've got the hut over here. If you want to bring the hut into action, I got the hut here. You just turn it on, and there's the hut kind of crawling out of the woods over here. So the hut's in here as well. So you have the huts in here. We've got the bullywogs in here too. You just click on what you need, make them visible, and then bring them into play on here. Now, as soon as those skulls moan, in the area lights up from the moaning, those pixies are gone. Dude, when they hear that, pixies are out. So you got a bunch of pixies on the screen here. Those pixies are taking off. The other thing I want to point out that causes a little bit more confusion on the battlefield, and I love having dynamic combats. What makes this combat dynamic is not just the adds from the monsters, from the scarecrows and Lysaga, is the players are trying to get these goats out. And what I mentioned in here in the goat pen is if the fence is still erected, there's no way for the goats to get out. When a player gets in there and the goats are looking around, remember Pavlov's dog, these goats know that when something gets into the pen, they're going to get gutted. They're going to get bled for some stupid potion. So these goats are afraid, right? So if the goats can't see that one of the fences has been busted down so they can escape, the goat is going to use its charge and ram feature to charge the player. It's going to charge and ram the player. It doesn't know the players are there to help. If there's a hole in the fence, if the players have managed to make a hole in the fence, the goats are going to start making a beeline to try to get out of there. Otherwise, it's going to try to defend itself because it doesn't know that you're trying to help. So it's going to ram. If you're going to reach over and try to pick the goat up, it's going to try to ram you. It's going to try to charge you. So this is going to create some dynamic things. You're trying to help something that's trying to hurt you. You better figure out maybe I should knock down the fence and let the goats just run instead of trying to engage with them. So this adds another dynamic element to the battlefield. So that's running it from the goat pen. Let's go to the swamp scene, and I'll just get that activated here. Now, in the swamp scene, this particular map, you can put anywhere you want to in Berez. And you can have this map pop up, whether you want to do it randomly in the hex crawl, or if you want to just decide at this moment, as they're traveling through the hex crawl or through Berez, they see the hut off into the distance. So, and you're going to populate your players, you're going to bring your players onto this map. Now, I would bring the players probably to the bottom of the map or over on the left side, either the bottom or the left side. And or the south or the west side of the map. They're going to see this hut, okay? And I got a little text here. You see this small hut fashioned upon an old tree stump lying on a mound of earth just above the swampy water. A chill runs through you as you notice a large dragon skull hovering or floating near the hut. Now, if they've already seen the dragon skull, or if they've already had that encounter at the goat pen, they're not going to see the dragon skull, right? But otherwise, it's just hovering there. your attention's quickly drawn to the cages hanging from the hut. There's some creatures in the cages. Now, let's talk a little bit about this terrain. Baba Lysaga, first of all, is not around here, right? She's out doing her thing, whatever it is that Baba Lysaga likes to do on the swamp on her own. This gives the players an opportunity to explore the hut. There are no creatures, nothing in around Baba Lysaga's hut or monsters to attack the players. The hut, the players don't know the hut is also animated. They just see this tree stump with a hut on top of it with a dragon skull floating close by. That's enough to put the players on their back heel. They're going to be scared. There's a floating dragon skull. There's a hut on an old, cypress or old oak stump in the middle of the swamp. And there's nothing around. They're going to be on their edge. So they're just going to be waiting for something to happen. When nothing happens, right, that's what you want to do. You want to create that tension, and that's what you're trying to do. Create the tension and allow them to do some exploring. And then they're going to, when they least expect it, that's when the shit happens. So we've got some water around there, and I made the water just using light in here. And let's talk about the water. So, and I put some words on here. The water is difficult terrain. As soon as they get in the water, it is difficult terrain movement. On top of that, as soon as they step in the water to try to make it over to this island, they have to roll a dexterity save DC 12. Otherwise, they become stuck in the mud. Movement goes to 0 at this point. On their turn, they're going to have to roll a strength check DC 12 to get out of the mud and continue to move through the water. You're only going to have this dexterity save stuck in the mud, excuse me, when they first enter the water. It's not going to be each step, just the first time. Excuse me. Sorry. Alternatively, if a player is close by within 5 feet, they can offer aid. You can roll advantage on that strength check, or maybe on that player's turn, they grab the player and the player with that other player are offering aid to pull him out and getting or her out and rolling advantage on that strength check. There are a couple logs across the water here. There's one right here, and there's one in the north. You can try to cross a log, dexterity 12. If you make it across, great. Otherwise, you're going to slip and fall into the water, which will be difficult terrain. The difficult terrain is important because if you're going to have a combat encounter here, you're going to be facing difficult terrain. Baba Lysaga's hut is technically like on an island out here. When they get closer to the hut, and we got a hut map. So as soon as the players cross over to the island, I would bring them to this map here. Okay? And why is that? Okay, now first of all, when the players get to this map, let me just bring in a token so they can see what I'm talking about. I'm going to just create a quick player token with some vision because they can't see into the hut, so I can show you what the player experience is like. And prototype token, vision. Let's put it in 30 feet, dim. Okay, so when the player comes up, when you bring the players to this map here, right, you're going to want to bring them on this side. And I'm going to do Fog of War and turn that off so that you can see the players don't see shite. So they don't see anything. They just see this. They're going to walk around and they're going to see there's a hut there, right? And when they come around, they're going to see a guy in a cage. There's a dude in the cage over here. So let's talk about what's going on in the cage. There are two cages, right? There's a cage up here and there's a cage here. If I zoom in closely, you can see the cages. Right, if I move them off there, there's the cage there. In this cage, there's a man in the cage. His name is Naven. He's a were-raven. He's very weak. He only has 4 hit points if we look at him. He only has 4 hit points. He was trying to steal. He's a were-raven, by the way. He was trying to steal for Baba Lysaga the skull of Argynvost and return it to Argynvost's hold, and he got captured. He's unable to transform into were-raven form because his hands and feet are shackled with silver shackles. So if you shackle a were-raven in human form with silver shackles, they will not be able to transform into a were-raven. Right? That's just how it works in Barovia. So he's shackled with silver shackles, and he can't transform into a were-raven like he could. And he's only got 4 hit points. He's got no weapons. However, he is close friends with Mariel Vinshaw, and if you've been using her in your campaign, this allows you to create some level of bonding. He knows quite a bit. He knows about the Skull of Argynvost. He knows Baba Lysaga's history. He knows about the Bullywog village. He knows various locations. I mean, he's kind of like I imagine him kind of like a strider, right? The strider of Brez swamps. He's been wandering the swamps for a while, hunting down Baba Lysaga, trying to get this skull and return it to the Argybos. But he has no weapons. He's pretty weak. If you remove the silver shackles, he'll be able to change into werewolf form. Maybe he can go get aid for you, or if you don't have Muriel Venshaw with you or somebody he can fly and probably warn them that players have discovered Baba Lysaga's hut. Now, he knows there's something strange about the hut, but he doesn't know what it is. He goes, this is her hut. I haven't been in it. I got captured trying to get that skull over there, and I'm kind of screwed. In the other cage is a swarm of ravens. And remember, Baba Lysaga is using the raven feathers or crow feathers in part of her concoction with the goat's blood to create those scarecrows, those animated scarecrows that we saw in the previous map. Now let's talk about inside the hut here. Inside the hut, you've got some old furniture. There's a bed. There's a table, some potions and stuff. You can see I got this little lighting effect. She's brewing up some of that potion to make some more of those scarecrows over here. As soon as you get into the hut, what you want to do is you want to play this sound here. And it's going to be, I don't know if it's going to be loud enough for you to hear. I try to make it subtle. It's periodic. I could probably make it a little louder for you. Maybe I'll do it. Make it a little louder. Here we go. Let me just turn this up. I'm going to make it really loud so you can really hear it. Here we go. I'll do it again. What that sound is the stump and the part of the tree that's alive underneath. It's starting to crackle. It's starting to move. Now, what you can do is the players hear that. If they ask, what is that? You can have them roll a hearing. What is that? What's that noise? You can have them roll a hearing perception check. And if they make it a DC 15, they'll realize that it's the stump, it's the tree in which the hut is built upon, is shifting or making some kind of noises. It's coming from the stump underneath the tree. So this is giving you a clue that something's going on, this sound effect that I put in there. That's that button, the swamp sound effect, as they're in there. Now, the floorboards are rotting. Passive perception check. Passive perception or perception check DC 12 reveals that there's something underneath the rotting floorboards. It's going to take a 14 strength to remove them. And what's there is a box. Now remember, in Legends of Barovia, continuing to go, in Legends of Barovia, the 3 gems are missing. So it's not the gem that's animating the hut. It's a Master's Amulet. And if you're familiar with the Master's Amulet, it's a shield guardian. In the Amber Temple has a Master's Amulet. And remember, Baba Lysaga went to the Amber Temple. So she's familiar with the Amber Temple. She's familiar with Shield Guardians. She stole 2 Master's Amulets. And she's used one with her own magic and stuck it in a box underneath the floorboards of the hut. And she's wearing the other Master Amulet. So that other Master Amulet allows her to command the hut. That is how the hut is animated, through the Master's Amulet, not through the gem. The gems, the 3 Fey gems, are missing, as we know, through the Fey quest. Now, if the players, kind of rules as written, try to remove the box with the Master's Amulet in it from underneath the floorboards, the hut itself will sprout wooden teeth in the cavity and try to bite the player. Players are going to have to roll a Dexterity 20 check, try to pull their hand out. If they succeed, they're going to get the box. They'll have the box. They'll be able to leave the hut. The hut won't be able to animate because you removed the Master Amulet that the hut has at that point. If they fail, they're going to take 3d6 piercing damage. They're going to drop the box. It's going to just kind of grab on their arm, rip some of the skin off. They're like, ah, and the box is going to fall in, back in there. Someone else is going to try to get it, or maybe not. But until that box is removed or that amulet's destroyed, that hut will animate and attack the players. Now, the hut becomes incapacitated if either of the Master Amulets are destroyed, if the one that Baba Lysaga has is destroyed, or the one that's buried underneath the hut is destroyed. In addition, the Master's Amulet is removed from the hut right? If you take it in the box and remove it from the hut's incapacitated. Or if you reduce the hut to 0 hit points during the combat encounter, it will be incapacitated. Now, what else there is in the hut is there's this wooden chest over here. The wooden chest is protected by a glyph of warding. It takes a DC 17 intelligence check, investigation check to realize that there's a glyph. The glyph will trigger, if you open the chest, will trigger and deal 5d6 worth of thunder damage. So that hut will get rocked. I would probably throw some theater in there. Maybe when the thunder damage, I'd have the players that are in the hut, anyone close to the door, roll a dexterity save to see if they fall outside of the hut at that point. Maybe the hut comes alive and starts attacking them. And in addition, there are 4 crawling claws. They're right here on the screen. They're just invisible. You just highlight them, and boom, you got the 4 crawling claws right there who are going to attack the player to the, they're going to keep on fighting to the death, any player that opened up that wooden chest. So why is that wooden chest so well protected with the glyph of warding and these crawling claws? Well, there's quite a bit of stuff in there. Let's talk about what's in the wooden chest, because there's some cool treasure in there. First off, you have 10d100 plus 500 gold pieces. Boom! There's 1,045 gold pieces. I don't like to put in fixed gold pieces. I like to have part of it random. That's just me. So every time you do it, there's something different in there. Right? Makes it a little bit fun. You don't know what it is. You get to roll on it. There is the oil of sharpness, pipes of haunting, stone of good luck. There's 3 spell scrolls in there: mass cure wounds, revivify, and remove curse. Now, there is an amber shard in there. And if the players find it, it's worth 100. They're like, oh, amber shard. If they do a successful arcana check, DC 12, it reveals that the amber shard can boost magic spells. Effect is unknown until a player tries to use it. So any player that is in possession of this amber shard and casts a magic spell or that does damage or healing, it's going to boost the damage or healing by 1d12, but they're going to take 1d6 worth of psychic damage. It recharges after a long rest. It is a cool thing to have, but you have the risk of taking damage. So you're gonna boost your healing by 1d12, whatever healing spell it is, or you're gonna boost your damage spell by 1d12. But you're going to take 1d6 worth of psychic damage, recharging a long rest. So I thought it was a really fun thing in there. It's kind of it's an enigma that's unknown, and then you use it the first time. It's like, oh, cool! Oh my gosh, I just took some psychic damage. So you're getting a benefit. You're getting a boon and bane mixed together at the same time. So that's what you have in there. Now, if you're going to do combat encounter with the hut, you're going to do it on this map here, and this is actually the hut. The hut you can move the hut here. We've got the skull as the vehicle. The hut is actually a creature, so I've got it all loaded up in here for you already with all the features. It has 3 attacks in it. You can replace one with a rock attack. The anti-magnetic is for the amulet. What's for the gem? It makes sense. You've got this gem that Baudelaire also has to command the hut. So if you have an anti-magnetic spell or something of that effect, the amulet no longer will work on the hut. So it's a way to kind of temporarily incapacitate the hut if you can get it into this anti-magnetic field. Now, when will the hut react? If you're investigating the hut and just investigating the hut and doing whatever you want to, even opening up the wooden chest, it's not going to care. If you try to take the Master's Amulet out of the wood hut, it will attack. It will attack the players if Baba Lysaga commands it, and it will attack the players if Baba Lysaga is under threat. Now, there's one more thing in the wooden hut, the swamp hut, that I wanted to mention. You're going to see on this table there's a book open right here in the hut, and in the book is a book of dreams. And I actually have a book in here. There's a PDF, a really nice PDF version of it. And this is a book of dreams. It's actually 4 poems from the French book of poems called Fleurs of Evil. I think it was written in late 1800s. It's a Gothic horror poetry that I thought was apropos for this. But what I wanted to do, and this is just if your characters like this kind of stuff or players like this, is the poems are kind of showing this deterioration of the mind. This is Baba Lysaga sits here, writing in here. I mean, she's lived this tragic life as this beautiful fae, now sworn and cursed as a swamp fae, making pacts with darkness and dark vestiges. Her life is kind of, she couldn't imagine a worse life. She's pondered death and vengeance, and so the poems just kind of show this manifestation of this change as she's writing these poems. And the poems are supposed to be written by her, obviously, not the French poet. But I have Mist and Rain, My Former Life, The Grateful Dead, and The Vampire in here. These are all poems from that book. And if you like Gothic horror and you read French, reading it in the original French, I'm sure is really good. These are English translations. I don't know if they're the best translations or not, but they kind of show you or give you some insight into what's going on with her deep down in her, and she can't even reach it herself. There is this good heart. There is this fae in her, that spirit of the fae. She's lost. I imagine to some extent Baba Lysaga's journey is figuratively like Kurtz's journey in Conrad's Heart of Darkness, going down the river and slowly losing yourself, your mental stability, vengeance, your perception and your moral compass have become corroded. You're not able to see right from wrong anymore. And so Baba Lysaga isn't inherently evil, but she has become dark and depressed, and it's manifesting everything around her. And so this is kind of this cool book of her dreams that she's writing in these poems. They kind of give you insight into Baba Lysaga's mind. So it's just a fun little player's handout. Now, if you want to elaborate and tie the poems into something in your game, feel free to do so. Highly recommend the book of poetry. It's got, I think, probably 30 or 40 great Gothic horror poems written from the late 1800s, early 1900s. Great book, Flowers of Evil. I'll put a link in the description down below, and you can get it. It's free in PDF at this point. I think it's out of copyright in there. So that's it. That's Baba Lysaga Swamp. That's the Baba Lysaga encounter. Some of my thoughts and ideas of how to run this encounter, whether you're going to do it at the goat's pen or somewhere in the swamp. Some different features, bringing in the bullywog, bringing also in the scarecrows in there as well. I hope you enjoyed this. I hope it gave you some inspiration. I would really like to hear your thoughts on how you're running Baba Lysaga. I didn't buffer too much, just giving her those 3 dark gifts and the sending spell. That was it. I thought that was enough because she has that skull that gives her that don't forget about that 3/4 cover ace, +5 AC. A lot of people forget about that skull has that feature when she's in there. So that protects her from a lot of hits. I think she has... what is she? She's armor class 15. In the skull, she'll be at armor class 20. So she wants to get to the skull because it provides her cover. So going from 15 to 20 AC, it's really going to help her a lot. Now, by the way, the skull is 50 hit points. So in armor class 15. So if you take the skull out and knock her out of the sky, you might want to start focusing on the skull. Try to take her out instead of Baba Lysaga. But that's up to the players, how they're going to handle this. So that's it. I really hope you liked the Baba Lysaga guide, the goat pen, some of the ideas I put in here. I'd love to hear your comments. Don't forget to smash that like button, hit subscribe. Join us on Discord channel. Share your ideas and thoughts with me. Share your stories. I love reading your campaign stories. Until next time, may all your rolls be critically successful.